Welcome to The Check-In, the Image podcast lifting the lid on women's health one honest conversation at a time. Image The Check-In is empowered by Boots and sponsored by Samsung and Waterstone Clinic. I'm your host, Ellie Balfe, and in each episode I sit down with some leading medical minds to explore the realities of our health across every decade. From hormones to heart health, this is your space to feel seen, heard, and supported as you take control of your health span. Because when women are informed, we are unstoppable. Today I'm joined by Aoife Harvey, a specialist physiotherapist at Women's Health Clinic Dublin, where she works with women experiencing pelvic health concerns across every stage of life. Pelvic health is something many women only hear about when something goes wrong. Issues like prolapse, bladder leaks, painful sex, or pelvic pain are incredibly common, yet they are rarely spoken about openly. Aoife works with women every day to assess, treat, and support these concerns through physiotherapy, education, and practical tools that can transform a woman's quality of life, especially when treated at the right time. So let's get into it. Aoife, you're so welcome to The Check-In. Thank you so much for being here today. Will you tell us a little bit about your background first and what led you to specialise in women's health?
Yeah, so I'm a physiotherapist, which a lot of people will have heard about. And we do lots of things like treat knees and backs. And there are physios that work in intensive care for chest problems and neurological problems like strokes and things. So there's loads of different areas. We're not just running out on pitches. And I started more specialising in sports physio, so your back and neck pain. And then I diverted a little bit into women's health. So women's health physio has been a thing forever, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking and working with pelvic floors before it became bougie, you know? So in 2015, which is 11 years ago, myself and my friend decided to do a course in Blackrock Clinic, actually. And there's great research and evidence for physio. So it's kind of a sidestep of what I was doing already with muscle training. And when I did that course, I found it so interesting. I decided, right, this is something I'm going to specialise a little bit more into and do a couple more courses. But then the next year I got pregnant.
Okay.
And when you live through women's health changes,
your
interest and your passion changes for it, you know? So having my first baby, giving birth vaginally, getting pelvic girdle pain during the pregnancy, leaking after pregnancy. So very quickly, it became more of a passion of mine. And I decided to completely divert into women's health and left behind all the sports and the back pain things. Because when you do specialise, there's so much to learn. So every course I do, every conference I do is all women's health, you know. And so that's what really brought me into it more and more. And now it's all I do. And then I suppose around COVID, I was pregnant for the second time and hopped on Instagram and decided to share my journey as a pregnant woman, but through the eyes of a pelvic health physio, you know, so with all my expertise as well.
Yeah.
And jumped on Instagram, fell in love with the creativity and the fun of Instagram. And here I am now in 2026 trying to teach as many women as we can about their pelvic floor.
Yeah, which you are doing. Your Instagram is amazing. I love what you put out on Instagram. It's
Thank
so
you.
helpful and properly engaging, actually. But tell us what you really do as a women's health physio. So who's coming into your clinic? What are you mainly dealing with?
So first of all, it is women of all ages, and it's not just pregnancy and postpartum, which is after pregnancy. If I'm treating younger women, like 18, so I don't treat children, but there are pelvic health physios for kids as well, because children can have bedwetting and constipation and leaking issues. But for me, my 18, 19, 20-something-year-olds are more painful intercourse, which is something that can be caused by many issues. And then endometriosis. So we know now that's 10% of women. So they could be having painful intercourse, painful pelvises, constipation, bladder issues.
Yeah.
So that would be my younger cohort. Then I have my pregnant ladies after pregnancy. And then we come into our perimenopause women who have issues from maybe younger in life or after their babies, but now they finally have the time and space to look after themselves, or they're looking into getting into more exercise because again, they have that time and space. Also, there's changes during perimenopause and menopause that can cause more pelvic health issues. So pelvic health issues go on the rise and increase. We're looking at about 60% of women around menopause who'll have pelvic health issues.
60%?
Yeah, versus 30% after babies. So the number grows, and then that can increase again with age. So I treat women in their 80s and 90s.
Wow.
And you're going to look at more bladder incontinence then, and waking up at night to use the toilet, urgency, and again, bowel issues and incontinence of the bowel. So we are the three holes, you know?
Yeah.
We are the bowel, we are the bladder, and we are the vagina, and we put our fingers in there, not into bladders because it doesn't fit, but our fingers and in gloves are in the holes, and we are assessing the muscles, and we are talking to women about what their symptoms are. And we are all over Ireland and all over the world, and we always have been. So we want women to know, and especially after this podcast, if they have issues, that there's help out there. And it's not just surgery, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And all the medical guidelines say, look, go to the physio first. It's like with a sore back. There are so many women we can help without having an operation, you know?
Yeah.
And if we can't, then we move on to more, you know, higher interventions. But physios are everywhere, and you don't need referrals or anything. So it's just about women going, I'm not putting up with this. It isn't life and death, but it's getting in the way of my life, my exercise, my confidence, my ability to go out and flip and walk, you know? So we want them to know, I'm going to look after my body and look after my vagina, and no one else is going to make me do this. So I'm going to go and see that physio. So hopefully after this chat today, half of the people listening will go, do you know what, I'm going to make that appointment.
Yeah. It's the perfect preemptive step before surgery, before anything happens, right?
Yeah, because we could either kick surgery down the road, or we can prepare you for surgery and post-operative rehab too. But we really want to delay it or avoid it.
Yeah. So what's the most common symptom that might bring women to you? Is it leaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And look, bladder leaks are more common than bowel leaks, much more common, right? So again, 30% of women after they have babies will have bladder leaks of varying, you know, degrees.
Yeah.
So if a woman is feeling like she's leaking on exercise, and then she doesn't want to go back running, or she doesn't want to go to her gym classes, it's embarrassing. And straight away they feel like, God, I don't want to be an old lady leaking, you know?
Yeah.
I say old ladies don't want to leak either. Okay, we think our brains are going to accept things as we age. We will not, you know? It's all about longevity. So that is a wetness, that is embarrassing, that is getting in the way of them doing things. And that really does bring them in, because we will chat about prolapse, but there's other things going on that women just don't even know are going on.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas leaking is, my pants are wet, I'm wearing pads all the time, I cannot go and do that run or do that high rocks or triking out, you know? So that is definitely one of the most common things people come in.
Yeah, so either leaking or pain, actual pain, people are coming in with. Okay. Do you find that people have had symptoms for a long time before they come to you? Like, I'm wondering, are women holding back, trying to understand something or watching something happen before they come to you? Like, are they waiting too long?
It depends. Much more women are coming into us now as soon as they have their babies, and I think we've social media to thank for that, because again, we are not a new industry. But pelvic floors and TikTok and Instagram has blown up, you know, so way more women are coming in to see us postpartum to get checked. And I embrace this. Every woman after they've had a baby should get a checkup.
Yes.
When you think of what pregnancy does to your body and delivering your babies, every woman should get a head to toe check and a proper sit down and discussion, not a 30 seconds, are you okay, while they're checking the baby, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's not good enough postnatal care. We see improvements in the public sector. They're setting up little hubs now, so we nod to that. But we need a service that allows every woman to, you know, get access to us. Irish Life Health, I'm going to give them props. They are covering that appointment now fully. I was chatting to them. I'm like, women should not have to be out of pocket just to get themselves checked after they've given birth to the future president of Ireland and maybe Europe, you know? Yeah. So it's the least we deserve. So when they come in and get checked, they may have a problem then, or they may not, okay? But women, Ellie, who are in their 40s or 50s or 60s weren't doing that. So there are women who've left it too long. Or there are women that come in after the baby, and because they're in that fog of newborn baby, we come in, we give them exercise. I'm always really sound about it, going like, I don't expect you to do your pelvic floor all day, every day. You're trying to keep a human alive with no sleep, you know? So they do come in, but sometimes they're not engaged, and I get that too. But at least they've had the check, and they might come back a few months later. Yeah. And there's other people that are back a few years later saying, look, the kids are in school, I really want to now go play tennis, and now I'm really leaking, you know. So some people leave it too long, but then it might get more bothersome. You know, it could be a little problem that now is affecting them, or again, they picking up that sport that they put off for ages, and now they're leaking more.
Yeah,
you know?
and they're coming back to themselves and knowing their own body.
Yeah. So I'm never blaming women, right? I'm blaming the fact that there's no time for women to look after themselves, right? There's the lack of support out there to allow women to do these things, rather than the person not taking onus to do it themselves.
Absolutely. So in perfect world, what would be the correct care, say after somebody has a baby? Like, what would you like to see?
I would like them to get a checkup with the physio in their first 12 weeks. It doesn't have to be 6 weeks.
Okay.
So even by week 12, okay?
Yep.
And their partner gets a day off work to bring them there, to take the baby and walk around outside so that they're not distracted by a little crying baby,
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
That they don't feel like they can't come because they've no childcare or no finances, you know? That there's nothing getting in their way of getting that checkup.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Yes.
Do they need loads and loads and loads of sessions? Depends on the person,
Yeah,
you know, and do they have time for loads of sessions? Depends on the person. But that's the first thing, is to engage with the service and know we're out there and be able to access us.
So what is that check, say, after somebody has a baby? What's the check that you would do?
I first check in on them how their birth was, because again, there's no space for how traumatic birth can be, and to go through what happened, you know?
Yes.
I always think you have your baby, you go home, you're a mom, but no one's like, are you okay after that?
I still shudder at the thoughts of my second labour.
People remember the slice of toast, right? You will remember a song you heard on the way home in the car. It's something you never forget in your life.
Yeah.
So in that first few weeks, giving them a space to talk about it, make sure their mental health actually is okay.
Yeah.
I always talk about their hormones. Postnatal hormones are the same as menopause, right? So we can cover both as we discuss this. I'm like, do you have night sweats? Do you have low libido? Do you want to get a divorce? You know? Is his chewing making you want to murder him? You know? Are you sleeping okay? Are you getting mood swings? Do you have joint pain? Right? Do you have low libido? Are your bowels moving okay? Do you have any heaviness in your vagina? Are you leaking when you sneeze or cough? You know, so I really have a list of things I go through that I check in with them.
List.
Very comprehensive. And you see their eyes lighting up as you say things, you know, even to know that the person sitting in front of them understands. Then I do a physical assessment, which would include screening their spine and their pelvis. I check their tummy for diastasis, which is the gap in the stomach muscles, to make sure that's closing okay. And then I do a scar check if they've had a C-section, and then we move down to their pelvic floor. And usually I'm the first person who has looked at their vagina since they've delivered.
Yeah.
You know, whether they've had a C-section or not. Are your pelvic floor injured? Do you have pain in your scar? Can you squeeze your muscles? When you're doing your Kegels, are you doing them properly? You know, I need to have my finger in there to check that.
Yes.
And most of them have not had intercourse because they've no time. They're so tired and they're so scared about it.
Yeah.
So I talk to them about that. Use lots of lube. Make sure you're relaxing. Do you feel ready for it?
Yeah.
When I've even examined them, they're like, is everything okay down there? You know what I mean?
There's so much anxiety around it.
They're like, I don't want anything in there ever again, you know?
Yeah.
So having someone to chat to and make sure everything's okay. Then I check them for prolapse, and I check them for prolapse lying down, sitting up, standing. I really thoroughly make sure that nothing is kind of moving down. And I'll also check if they've hemorrhoids, because 80% of pregnant women get hemorrhoids. So I look at their hemorrhoids, give them advice about that. So again, things that nearly everyone will experience something of, you know? And then I might give them homework and I might not. And I might give them advice about getting back to exercise, not at the 6 weeks, not just jumping back into running, waiting at least 12 weeks, working through Pilates and core and your Kegels first, you know. That's where women fall off, because they're like, I don't have time for this, you know.
Yeah.
But there are some great now, like mum and baby classes out there to bring the baby along, let the teacher kind of direct you what to do to kind of help them get you back and not feel like you can't, you know, need childcare for it. So there's a lot of improvements in the mum and baby space now, you know, by women, for women.
Yes, of course. God, Aoife, that sounds like a very, like, a mind, body and spirit check-in.
It is. And
I
that's
kind of
why
want to do that just myself
Oh,
with you.
come on in. It's an hour, right? And
Yeah.
we need an hour. And that's why the health insurance company's like, it costs more and we're specialists,
course.
but it's an hour. And women deserve that. You know what I mean? To leave that space feeling heard and
And
checked.
again, it's this preemptive thing. So particularly, I mean, we'll come back to prolapse later on, but like you would know at that point then if there is a risk of one or if there is one already, or these are really significant big things.
Absolutely.
And you know.
We know then. And again, it is, if you think about it crazy, to birth the child and know and check your vagina.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, because
Yeah, it's
what they are
wild.
checking is stitches, right? Are your stitches infected or not? We are checking your vagina as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we should be looking after our vaginas forever and not just waiting for a problem. You know, in other countries, we know France give them 10 sessions of physio after they have their babies. But in other countries, women have gynecologists gynecologists, and they just go every year. And with their gynae, they're like, get their smear, do their coils, just check in on things, maybe talk about their hormones. So it's kind of like a women's health check-in, you know? Love that.
Love that. I really feel that we're just slow to that way of thinking, even the women ourselves. Like why do you think that is?
I think, first of all, women hate anyone looking at their vaginas.
Yeah.
And they put that off for that reason.
Yeah.
And women come in to be every day embarrassed and putting off the appointment just because they know I'm going to check their vagina, you know? I don't even think they're embarrassed about what they're going to tell me, because as soon as they meet me, they know I've heard it all. Like, I will say things like, do you ever have to put your finger in your vagina to help your poo come out? And things like that. They'll look at me like, how did you know? You know? So things
they think
that...
they're the only one.
Yeah, they always think they're the only one, which is, again, conversations like this going, I do that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have pain during sex. No one talks about that on the internet. I can't get my poo out without my finger helping. No one talks about that on the internet, you know, bar me, you know. But these are not taboo subjects, you know. Even having a bowel movement should not be a taboo subject. You know what I mean? If from childhood age, holding in your poos and I don't have a poo. We were talking earlier, you have your kiwis every night and now you're pooping every day.
Absolutely.
When I was on the dart here, I needed a poo. And I was like, I hope this feeling doesn't go away by the time I get to the studio. And as soon as I got here, I saw the toilet. In I went and had the poo in public before I met you, right? And I went, thank God, that's
I'm happy
out.
for you.
I can focus on the podcast now, you know? So these are just normal things in life.
Yeah.
Talk about an elbow, talk about a nose, talk about a vagina, you know? Let people see them, let them examine you, and not be embarrassed of your vaginas and not think there's something ugly that we should be like forgetting exist, you know?
It's just normal. It's to know it's normal.
Totally
I
normal.
think, just thinking there as you're speaking, like the only bowel movement that I think I've ever spoken about in years prior was the one that you have after you have the baby, where they tell you to kind of hold yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only like technically focused bowel movement discussion I've ever had.
And everyone will remember that bowel movement.
Totally remember. And the fear of it's going to happen, when is it going to happen? It's going to be awful.
And everything feels like it's going to fall out, which is why.
Sweating, and it's so scary.
In case there's any pregnant women watching, right? And we have our little vulva here. Holding the perineum for your first bowel movement and even for the first 6 weeks is so important, because everything down there does feel really weak, and we do not want to be constipated postpartum. And there's sometimes, Ellie, not always women are checked for that when they leave the hospital. Have you had one? It can be a week or two go by.
Absolutely,
you know. So really we want them to do their bowel movements and keep them moving every day, and take their prunes and their kiwis and their lactulose and their little microlax suppositories. I mean, every woman, where is my little tube? Every woman should know about microlax suppositories, right?
Okay, tell me.
Instant. I know we're hopping over topics, but that's okay. So microlax are little tubes you can get in the pharmacy over the counter, right? And they're just a little suppository. So they're just sugary water. They're not a medicine. You rip the top off, put a bit of Vaseline on, right? Stick it up your bum. Your fingers do not go inside, so there's nothing unhygienic, and squeeze the liquid in.
And what's that doing?
What it does is it softens the poo. So if you've a poo sitting in your rectum, right, and you're constipated and it's large, or you've hemorrhoids and it's sore, or you've ignored the urge because you're bringing the kids to school and you came home and it won't come out now, right? That's what happens, poos. If you ignore the feeling you need a poo, it just sits there. And it could sit there for a day or two, right?
That feeling's not going to come back
that
again.
Feeling,
you get one window.
It could come back hours later. It could come back with your next poo from above. You know, so the pipe is blocked, right? The next poo comes along and tries to push out, right? So if you've hemorrhoids, or you just want to have a daily bowel movement, which we all want, you can squeeze up that microlax and it just softens that poo, and you'll just get a natural urge to go, and out it comes, right?
Is that better than some of the drinks? I know there's drinks that you can kind of melt a powder into water, and that's just a stool softener.
Yeah, like Movicol is great when it's prescription only. That keeps the poos watery. You want poos basically to be a sausage shape formed, but not too dry. Slide through your body, right? I would say your rectum, right, is like a water slide. And if your poos are dry, it's like someone turned the water off. Okay. And there's a man or a kid halfway down the slide, someone turned the water off and they're stuck. Okay. So microlax is like you've got a hose at the bottom of the slide and you're just shooting it up so you can slide them down.
Okay.
But that's why poos need to have good water content, but we don't want them to be like diarrhea or mushy. No. So that's why things like kiwis keep them bound together, but are lovely and juicy. You know what I mean? So that's why kiwis really help you go every day. And eating your skins, Ellie, is just the most important part of the kiwi. Do you eat your skins, Ellie?
I do. I'm a complete advocate. I'm fully in the Kiwi community.
And if people struggle, just slice them up first.
I slice it because I can't eat it like that.
I can apple eat it,
Yeah.
you know.
I slice it and it's totally fine.
I won't do it now because the juice will go all over the mic, but the kiwis are double the fibre, but what they do is they bind your poo. So then the inside is all the lovely soft pieces and full of vitamin C, great for your skin, great for melatonin, great for sleep. Great for sleep. So kiwis are just so cheap and no one's trying to sell you them. No one's making a profit here. But that's why going for a poo every day and it just leaving your body as soon as you sit on the toilet is so important. Some people never struggle with that. When people do, it's really not nice, you know? So again, people aren't really out there talking about bowels and pooping. And when people have problems with pooping, like, we need to have the conversations going. So when you've had your baby or an operation, right, or you've bad hemorrhoids, you do not want to be constipated.
Just before we go into a little bit more on the pelvic floor in a second, I just want to touch on what you said there about women being embarrassed coming into you. And I think that's such a shame that people are feeling shame or embarrassment. Do you think it's getting in any way better with how more health literate and body literate and more aware women are? Yeah. Or is it the same? Or like,
I'm going to stereotype here in the majorities.
Yeah.
Younger women are getting better.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I mean by young is 30s and below.
Okay, yeah.
I get so many girls now in their 20s.
Yeah.
From TikTok and painful intercourse. I did a video on TikTok and it blew up, right? And it wasn't to get business, but they are actually coming to see us if they are painful intercourse. Women would never have done that years ago.
No, they really wouldn't.
They wouldn't have sought help and they would have put up or avoided.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So women, ladies in their 18, 19, 20s and they're way better going, that pill doesn't suit me, it changed my mood, I gained weight. They are way wiser, but they're on Insta, right? Or TikTok more. So they're looking at stuff and maybe it's not all accurate, but that means they're more informed, right?
Yeah.
But then women postnatally, especially when they've had vaginal births, are like, oh, I don't care, look at my vagina, you know?
Yes, true.
As you further get away from the births, you're like, oh God, don't go near my vagina again, you know? So I think the embarrassment is more we're going to examine them, you know? And the same when I worked in the hospital, like if we're putting fingers up bums and into vaginas, they just don't want us to go near their vagina. They're ashamed of their own vaginas and they don't like people outside seeing it. That's why people are afraid of smears too.
Yes,
like they dread their smear. Smears should not be painful.
Yeah.
It's just they don't want to go in and have people at their vagina.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I understand, but it's just such a shame, isn't it?
And I think everything Ellie in life has experienced, the more you show people your vaginas, the easier it gets.
Yeah, and you're so true that after you have a baby, you're like, whatever.
Yeah,
whoever.
so keep showing them. Go every year and you'll be like, this is grand.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go back a little bit, Aoife, just to the pelvic floor. Will you just explain what it is and what it's doing for us? What is it holding?
Yes. So pelvic floor are muscles, right? Like muscles all over the body. They attach from the front to your pelvis to your back. So from your pubic bone to your tailbone and your hip bones or your sit bones, right? And they're a hammock of muscle. So they're different to other muscles that kind of run along your bones, right? Yes. They sit there on their own. So when they get weak, they can drop lower. And when they are strong, they lift inside your body. Yeah. So when I'm cueing people to use their pelvic floor, you're always using your brain, Ellie, because you're like, I cannot see them and nothing is moving. So I don't know if I'm doing this, right? You can't just look in a mirror, right? But that's why I always say a sucking cue. So if your vagina had a straw in it and you were trying to drink milkshake through your vagina, you would suck into the body. So I hope everyone listening is trying to do that as I say it. So I don't like the stop the fart cue because that's just the little muscle of your bum, right? But that's sucking in the vagina, gets all the muscles up. I can tell Ellie's doing it. She's looking really concentrating. They are those muscles and keeping them strong is very important. And as we age and have pregnancies and have babies, they can get weaker. When you're younger, they don't tend to be weaker. So that's why women don't hear about Kegels till they're pregnant. And I think that makes sense, right? What I would say, and the reason I brought cling film here today is the muscles are really important. But that's not all there is. And this is where, I suppose, for me, there's an obsession with pelvic floor muscles that sometimes is a little bit unjustified, okay? Because what it makes people think is if you do your Kegels or you had a baby and you do your Kegels, it'll negate all problems.
Yeah,
right?
There is that thinking.
Just do your Kegels, you'll never get a prolapse, you'll never leak. If you leak, it's because you didn't do your exercises. Yeah. So now we're back on blaming the woman for not being compliant, right? Correct. Which we don't like. So cling film, right, which I brought in with me, is connective tissue, okay?
Yes.
And I say this, Ellie, because people see this in the mirror. If you think of your boobs, right?
Yeah.
And if you think of your boobs as a 20-year-old versus a 40-year-old,
Yeah.
do they look the same?
No.
Where are they going?
Down.
Yes. Is that because you're not in the gym doing enough pec exercises?
No.
Why are they going down?
Because of age and the tissue changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your skin and the connective tissue, which is like cling film under your skin, ages. Okay. So when we look at the pelvic floor, it's not just about the muscles. There is connective tissue everywhere, right? So let's say, Ellie, I had a baby and I got stretch marks. That's from the stretching of my connective tissue.
Yeah.
Do I think they'll disappear afterwards? No, they'll fade, but they'll never go away.
Yeah.
If some women breastfed and then they're like, God, after I breastfed, my boobs just flopped, right? That's because they were so big during breastfeeding. And then when they lost that size, there was nearly a bigger drop. So when a woman has a baby, and everything is stretched during the labor, when she's finished having her baby, not everybody, some people that connective tissue is stretched. So it's not just, are your muscles strong? Are your muscles weak? Can you squeeze your muscles?
So is it like stretch marks internally?
Yeah.
Is it, if you will?
Yeah, if you will.
Yeah.
I more prefer the boobs. I'm like, if I send you off now to the gym to do loads of chest press, if a 19-year-old personal trainer told you, I'm going to tighten up your boobs in the gym, I'd be like, they're lying, okay? So it's the same in your pelvic floor.
Yeah.
In your vagina and in your pelvis, there's this cling film. And if it gets stretched because your baby's big, or you had a forceps, or you're pushing for ages, or your genetics, there's people that just have great little boobs or look younger in their skin, just their genes, right? Yeah. So your connective tissue is based on your genetic makeup. So we can't just say, do Kegels, it'll save you from everything. And if you didn't do them, you'll leak. Connective tissue's there too. And that's what's, I suppose, more complicated for women to understand.
Yeah.
It's not just a muscle thing. So the muscles are something we can work on. The connective tissue sometimes is a harder thing to actually change. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't do Kegels. We're like, let's do them, but it's not going to fix everyone.
Okay.
We're looking at about 50%. So if you have a bladder leak and you do lots of Kegels for us and you're really compliant, 50% of you will say, I'm way better. Okay. But 50 to 40 will say, I'm not better or I'm not cured.
So what can we do for our connective tissue?
Don't have vaginal births.
Oh, right.
Too late for us. Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. We can't. Like, people always tell me now, should I take collagen? And collagen supplementation is such a new thing. And we have no data that it helps you there, right?
Yeah.
We can't do anything for our connective tissue.
Right, okay,
Look,
so
I'm using a treatment in the clinic now called radio frequency, kind of newer cosmetic-y treatments, but for the vagina, for connective tissue. So I'm over in Katrina Ryan's clinic getting all this stuff done to keep
being lifted and tightened.
You're trying to keep your face and your neck tightened. So I'm trying to do that internally for women, So that is something we should be looking at now. Like, could we stimulate collagen remodeling through other modes? And then obviously there's surgeries, and we'll talk about pessaries. But I just want women listening going, like, if you did all the Kegels and it didn't work, it's not just the muscle. If you didn't do your Kegels, that's where you start. You got to start with the muscles.
Yeah.
But with my patients, I'm like, you give me everything for 12 weeks with your muscles. Do your homework.
Yes.
Okay? Do the homework. And if you do the homework and come back and say, I'm not better, Aoife, I'm not going to just keep making you do Kegels.
Okay.
So that is, out on the internet, it's like pelvic floor, buy this contraption, do this, come to this class. We'll fix everything by doing your Kegels. We're not going to fix everything.
Okay. You're going to help, but not fix everything.
Yeah, but we have more, tricks up our sleeve.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of Kegels, just tell us how to do them properly.
Okay, you're going to suck up your straw, right, in your vagina. Okay. Ideally, you're lying down doing this, okay? But not if you're walking down the road. Hold the straw up there for 10 seconds, okay? Keep your focus in your brain on that straw. Try not to hold your breath. That's what people do because they suck in their nose. So even count out loud to 10. So I'm doing it now while I talk. Ellie's not talking.
I'm doing it, but holding my breath.
Yeah. What happens, Ellie, when you sneeze and cough now, or you go running, like you cannot live life going, I just won't breathe, right? So we do have to tie it in with the breath work. We do slow ones for 10 seconds, and we're supposed to do 10 of them. And then we do fast ones. So we'll like squeeze, let go, and squeeze, let go, right? So those fast ones are going to be our sneezing, right? That we have to do endurance and speed. So we teach people to do them properly, internally examining them. 3 times a day to start with. And then we do them in funner positions like standing or squatting. There's even little weights, vaginal cones you can put in your vagina. And I get women to just hold them in and kind of do make the lunches in the morning or make the breakfast and just hold a little weight in their vagina to keep their muscles going.
Gwyneth and her jade egg.
Well, yeah. Do not do any yoni steaming even while we're talking about Gwyneth. Yeah. She's good intentions.
It's the holding, so that you could hold something internally.
Yes. And those little weights get stronger, or heavier, you know?
Yeah.
So there's also little machines you can put up there to stimulate, and there's the Emsella chair now. So there's lots of things that you can do to work the muscles.
Does that work, the Emsella chair? I've seen that.
Look, it strengthens the muscles, right? Yeah. But just like women coming to me, it's not going to fix everyone.
Sure.
I would love if people would actually see a physio and be told, should I use it?
Okay. Of course.
I think it's actually a great thing and it does what it says.
Yeah.
But that is, again, women going, I'm not going to bother getting examined. I'll just sit on the chair so no one looks at me. Don't know if they've a prolapse, don't know what's going on, don't know if they've low estrogen. Just sit in the chair and hope it does miracles.
Yeah, because it sounds so easy.
Yeah. So it'll work for some, but it won't work for everyone.
So it's a tool that may work, but it's not actually a solution.
Everything's a tool. It's like you taking your friend's HRT and just spraying it on your arm and hoping for the best. You know, you need to be individualised.
Yeah. This episode of Image the Check-In is empowered by Boots. Boots pharmacists are with you for life. They are often the very first stop when it comes to advice, care and guidance. For all facets of women's health at every age and every stage, Boots is here to help you feel informed, supported and empowered every step of the way. We are proud to partner with them to bring you the knowledge you need to future-proof your health. Okay, so to the pelvic floor. That's our pelvic floor with the muscles and the connective tissues. What are the signs for the listeners of that it's not working? So obviously we've talked about leaking. What else? How will you know?
Well, leaking is the main one.
The primary one.
That's pelvic floor weakness. So whether you're leaking from your back passage or leaking from your bladder, that's a sign of a weak pelvic floor, okay? Then they might have tight pelvic floor, so that could be more pain, constipation and painful intercourse. So the muscles can be too weak, but they can also be too tight.
Why are they too tight? What's causing that?
Oh gosh, lots of things. Okay. First of all, stress massively. Because you know, people like clench their jaw when they're sleeping or have like tight shoulders. So stress, trauma, and if people are trying to have intercourse, they can't release down there. Pelvic pain from endometriosis. So some people or just naturally have really tight pelvic floors, you know. So if they're tight, they may not know, but they might say it's sore when I try to have sex, I struggle to have bowel movements, I just get pain down there, I get sometimes bladder pain or urgency. So tightness is a thing that, again, we treat in the clinic, you know.
You don't hear so much about that.
No.
You hear about the loose
because
pelvic floor.
Leaking is a more classic symptom. If someone leaks when they sneeze, they're like, oh, I have a weak pelvic floor.
Yeah.
But if someone's like sex is sore, they don't know why.
Yes,
you
absolutely. Know? Okay. Let's go into prolapse because we've touched on it and I have quite a personal experience here as well. I was telling you earlier, I had prolapse surgery last year and it was bladder and bowel. But more than, I'm not going into my own case, obviously, but the thing that struck me was how I knew nothing about it when it was told to me. And then I spoke to all my friends and they hadn't a clue. They were like, what's prolapsed? What organ? Like, what's happening? So that there was like, I was completely ignorant to it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are. So 50% of women, 50, post-vaginal births. Yeah. And when I say post-vaginal birth, I don't mean immediately, but in their lifetime afterwards. 50, that is massive.
Isn't it?
Massive.
Yeah.
So it's the silent assassin.
Yes.
And they caught you, Ellie.
They did. Yes. Yeah.
Look, just like I was talking about the clink film, like forget the muscle for a sec, right? Prolapse is not your pelvic floor.
Yes, correct.
Muscles. Yeah. You have a baby. Your vagina is designed magically to stretch. And the hormones at the end of your pregnancy, like the female body is absolutely amazing. Like, and we don't even understand, even though it gives us lots of trouble, you know. The hormones that release at the end of pregnancy are to make your vagina stretch much more than it's ever done before, okay? And then the uterus decides today's the day, unless you're induced, which we won't go there, and squeezes the baby out. And I always say, ladies, don't push your babies out. Your body will push your baby out, okay? Your uterus squeezes and it pushes the baby into the vagina. And all I want you to do is get in a lovely position, open up, relax your muscles and let your vagina widen, okay? When that happens and the baby comes through, what we want to happen in the next 6 weeks is that the vagina contracts, just like the uterus, right? So your uterus, your womb is really big in pregnancy. We want it to close in again, right? And sometimes those contractions can be very sore, especially on your second and third. Oh my God. But that is your body trying to shrink back in, okay? So it's like we've stretched a band, Ellie, and now we're letting it go again. But sometimes that contraction back does not go all the way. Okay, so the vagina is stretched, now it goes back into position, but it doesn't go all the way. So here's our cling film. I always say this, you know, you use cling film once, right? And then you go, oh crap, I forgot to put the cheese on the sandwich. And you re-wrap it. It's never as strong.
No.
Okay, so when you have cling film that's never been stretched and then it recoils, it just never feels as strong again. So we call that laxity. There's a bit of softness, there's a bit of floppiness in the vagina, okay? But when we examine women postpartum, I'm like, is there a prolapse? Is there a little bit? Is there just a tiny bit of laxity? Or is there a proper prolapse here? And do we need to monitor this and really help this woman even with, we'll chat about pessaries, getting back to exercise, not making it worse. But the cause for the most part is vaginal births, right? Chronic constipation is also another one. I meet women who've never had babies who are straining on the loo their whole life. That's why the bowel is so important and the kiwis and all that. Straining forever. And that can give you prolapse of the back wall because you're pushing down. When you're giving birth to your baby, that's why we don't want you pushing, straining into your pelvic floor and pushing for long periods. Big babies, forceps deliveries, all risk factors. And women in Ireland now have our babies older, right?
That's true,
And me too. Our connective tissue isn't as springy, right? There's some things we can't help. Women are older having babies, more IVF so they get induced. Babies have gotten bigger. Okay. So there's things that are just happening naturally because we're all career women now. So that we're like, well, what can we do to reduce that? But forceps gives me the shivers. That is a big risk factor because it's a big instrumental.
Okay, right.
Because you're basically getting something in there to assist the pulling of the baby rather than the body just doing it itself, you know? So when we look at that prolapse, that could be small stage 2, right? When before they've, you know, after they've had their baby. They could have another baby, it might stay the same or might get a little bit worse. As you age, think of the boobs, it's getting worse. So that's why a lot of women, 40s, 50s, even 60s will come in and say, last week, I lifted up something in the gym or I lifted up a shopping bag and something popped. And it's like they think it happened in that moment. And whatever it was, they're blaming that. And I'm like, this has been here since what year was your first vaginal delivery? You know, it has been there, but it has changed. So it has dropped more because you're older, because you're losing estrogen, because your connective tissue is not as good, because you lifted heavy weights, because you're something, because you're something, right? But it's not their fault. Like it was there.
And it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And so when people say, I don't want to end up like this, I don't want to end up like my mom, I'm like, age is something we cannot defy, you know? So that's why with
but
the
age
pelvic...
is a risk factor.
Age is a risk factor. Well, we want to live though, you know? But that's why I suppose we can't just say you didn't do your Kegels, that's why you got a prolapse. Do you know what I mean? That's why we need to change that narrative. What we want to do is see, do you have a prolapse early? And what can we do to prevent this getting worse? Okay, and that's what we're going to chat about. Like, what are the solutions? How do we avoid surgery or kick it down the road? So
I think that's really important because when I found out mine, it's exactly as you said. It was from my labours, which was 14 years prior. My surgeon thought it was my second child. And then this happened all of a sudden. It actually happened when I got sick. I got COVID a couple of Christmases ago and I was coughing so much that actually it happened. But it had been going on for all of the 14 years prior.
And chronic cough is another perfect one.
It was the coughing
pressure
that did it. And literally it was in one coughing fit. I was like, oh, something else has happened. So yeah, that was the story.
And what Ellie, you're a better person to do this. I'm going to switch on the interviewer now, right? What were the symptoms, Ellie? How would women know they have a prolapse?
I did not feel any symptoms. I have to be honest. But what had happened was before I went into my gynecologist and she was doing a smear, attempting a smear, and she said, I can't see. So there was something in the way of her getting to my cervix.
Okay.
Is what happened. And then she referred me. And then in that time while I was waiting for my referral, I got COVID and coughed. And then there was a very obvious bulge basically in my vagina. I could feel it. It was very present. I could feel this pressure. But for the years prior, no symptoms at all.
But when the bulge happened,
that was very obvious.
What was that feeling for you?
heavy, but feeling like there's something inside my
like
vagina.
a tampon, right?
Yes.
Because it's not painful. When
not
people ring, go, it's sore, I have a prolapse. I'm like, prolapse is not painful.
No, it's not painful. It's a presence.
Yeah. But that presence can be like a woodpecker gnawing at your brain. You cannot stop thinking. And I say that to women again, they're like, yes, you are walking around going, there's something there, there's something falling out.
You feel like something's going to fall out.
Yes.
That is the feeling.
Yes.
And so that was why when I did go to my surgeon, I did have to have surgery. So I'd love to know how we can preempt that and not have to have the surgery, which is 6 weeks off work. It's quite a debilitating surgery. You know, it takes a long time to recover from it. So,
and with any surgery, right, there's risk factors of just having an operation, but the vagina is not an easy place to do surgery.
No.
It's mucosal, right? It's actually harder than other parts of the body. And Ellie, they don't last forever.
This is what I'm told.
If you've prolapse surgery in your 40s, you're doing well to get 15 years out of it.
I believe so.
Then you're going to have another one at 60. You might get 10 years out of it. Yeah. Now you're a 70-year-old having your third prolapse surgery, Ellie. Yeah. So sorry, Ellie.
I know. And I wish I'd known and come to you and got the interventions before. So what can we do before surgery?
Okay, so lifestyle factors first. Avoid constipation, which is again why the bowels are so much more important than pee. It's not just about feeling great when you poo and getting rid of all your toxins and just having a lovely poo, right? It's not just about that, but it's also about avoiding the straining, constantly straining there. That will make prolapse worse. Chronic coughs, even people are on blood pressure medication and it gives them a chronic cough, okay? Or smokers, right? And smokers affects your mucosa and it affects your prolapse. Your estrogen levels, right?
Yeah.
So vaginal estrogen, which we are obsessed with. This is just VagiFem. Vaginal estrogen is not for just dryness and it's not for just painful intercourse. Lots of women don't bother using this. So 40 plus, I have been listening to people now and I kind of agree with them. 40 plus, we should be on vaginal estrogen, right? Our estrogen's going down. Why are we waiting until postmenopause for these women? If you're on HRT, it doesn't get to your vagina and your bladder, right? Your vagina loves estrogen, okay? More than anywhere else in your body, right? Estrogen makes your vaginal pH much better, so you don't get BV and thrush so much. It makes you have more natural lubrication. It makes sex feel better. Estrogen applied to your clitoris makes your clitoris sensation better. It increases the blood flow. It stops you getting skin problems down there, feeling dry, burny, itchy symptoms, right? But let's say you have none of those symptoms. It's great for prolapse and it's great for bladder issues. So urgency, like when women are going through hormone changes, they feel like, oh, I'm bursting to go to the loo. Or if I have a cup of coffee, God, I need a toilet near me, right? Oh, I'm out watching the kids play sport. I wouldn't have a drink because there's no toilets in the park. They didn't probably say that 10 years before. So there are things, again, that people live with till they're like, I cannot go for a walk, right? I'm not meeting the girls to do, walk on the harbour in Dunleary because there's no toilet there anymore, So you should be able to hang on to your wheeze. If you can't and you are going through hormone changes, estrogen is amazing for this, but not HRT. So vaginal estrogen through a cream or a tablet or a gel, you put it on twice a week after your loading dose, and it is brilliant for bladder health, UTIs, leaking, urgency. If someone comes into me and they're leaking urine or have urgency and they're over 40, I'm like, get on this. Do this first, okay?
Really?
Before you do anything else. Or if they're like, I'm feeling the prolapse. If I had met you, Ellie, and you came into me then, I would have looked at it and gone, is this prolapse really low? Go on estrogen first. Just go on the estrogen for 8 weeks. Does the feeling go away, right? COVID is gone, your cough is gone, you're on the estrogen, we'll do some pelvic floor. Has the feeling gone away? Even if the prolapse hasn't gone away. If I could have bought you another 5 or 10 years, that's what I would have wanted to do, So it's great for sex, great for bladders, great for prolapse, right? So vaginal estrogen, we love it.
What's the difference between the pessary and then the creams and the gel, like the different formulations?
Yeah, so this is estradiol and the other ones are estriol. So they're actually a different form of estrogen.
Oh, okay.
So if someone got thrush with VagiFem, I'd be like, try the other ones, right? I prefer the creams and the gels.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
They come with an applicator so you can shoot it inside. They absorb quicker. Some women, the little tablet doesn't absorb, but they don't know.
Oh, okay.
And always, always, always put it on at night in bed, right?
Yeah.
Tiny tablet, big vagina, okay? If you put it on in the toilet standing up, it could drop. Or a lot of women put it on in the morning because it doesn't say it on the leaflet. And I'm like, you're going to go for a wee, you're going to walk, it's going to drop down, and you don't notice. The gels and creams, this is why I love them. You can, with your finger, rub it directly on your urethra, your clitoris, down the sides. The outside needs it too. So if women are on the Vagifem inside, but they've anything going on the outside, or they're not orgasming well, I'm like, you need to put this on the outside too. So I love that you can directly get that gel or cream, applicator in, or get your finger in, rub it everywhere, rub it on the outside, you know, don't rub it on your eyes. It is amazing. So that's why I love them, because they're multi-purposeful.
Wow, okay.
And the Blissful gel, people find, is very soothing and moisturizing. That's really the most popular at the moment, is the Blissful. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would say, you've got prolapse, let's do Kegels and let's do estrogen. Come back to me after a few weeks, right? And if they're constipated, I'm all over it, right?
Okay.
When they come back, if they're like, I'm brilliant, Aoife, we're doing nothing else. If they're not brilliant and they're like, no, I still feel the bulge, or I still have urinary symptoms, right? We're looking at a pessary.
Yeah.
And we're a different type of pessary, okay? So pessaries, I have two here. There's lots of different types. Lots of people have heard about the ring. People used to call it the curtain ring. I call it the ring of confidence, okay? I love it. It is like a sports bra for your vagina, right? It really is. What we love about these pessaries, they're silicone. When they're inside your vagina, you do not know they're there. So I think to look at, women are like, I'm not putting that inside me, okay? And again, the younger women are used to menstrual cups now, and they have no bother with this stuff, right? We put them in the vagina, they fold to go in, right? So it's not just going to open everything up. It folds over and it goes through the hole and it pops up inside. The ring, and I don't think this will work very well against the background, but the ring sits inside and it holds up the bladder and the uterus, but it doesn't hold the rectocele that you had, which is the back wall, okay? Yeah. But it lifts the bladder and the womb. So if they're the problem, women might say, God, I don't leak anymore. I don't feel heaviness. My prolapse has gone away, because their new little sports bra ring is just putting it back where it belongs. Like, would you go for a run without a bra on? You know what I mean? Yeah, no, especially if you're not 16 anymore, you know? So that internal lift means women can exercise, lift heavy weights. If you have a surgery, there's limits on that. Like, if you have a surgery, you're not supposed to lift heavy weights, because that could undo the surgery. If you have a pessary in that works, there's no limitation on you, because it's not an operation. Once the pessary is lifting up your prolapse, we're not afraid of you lifting heavy weights or running or doing whatever you want. Wow. So for us, this ring I charge €65 for. It lasts about 2 or 3 years. It can stay in you all the time. But
so it's in all the time?
It's in all the time. Okay. If it's in all the time, you have to keep it in for sex, which you can with the ring, but you can't with other ones like the cube, right? You can't. Yeah. So I like to teach women to take them in and out, right? Mm-hmm. Because that means they can take it out for sex. That means they may only use it for the gym. That means they can take it out and clean it, and they don't need to see me as often. So we want them to be autonomous. If they're really constipated on holidays and it falls out in the toilet, they're not going, oh God, now I'm just stuck without it, you know? Yes, okay. So it's really easy to take in and out. But we just love that it lifts them, and then they don't have prolapse symptoms, and they're not having surgery. Why would you have surgery then? If they're like, well, I'll just keep this in till surgery, I'm like, well, why have the surgery? We have fixed you. Oh, but then I have to keep the ring in. But once they get the ring and they walk around not even knowing it's there, they forget all about it. They're like, oh my God, this is brilliant, right? 65 quid, no risk at all. And then we're kicking that surgery down the road, or we're never doing the surgery if we can avoid it. Yeah. So sometimes, Ellie, as women age, it'll just get worse and the pessary won't do the job anymore. Yeah. And they have to have the operation, but now they're having that operation at age 60 or 70, you know, instead age 40 or 50. But I have women in with me who are in their 80s and 90s using their rings. And these days I have women who are 80 years old putting it in and out themselves once they don't have arthritis. So I would like to keep them with the pessary forever if we can, because then we're avoiding any kind of bladder injuries, you know.
And is it a case that the prolapse up behind that, is that still getting worse, or is it kind of halting it? Is it just sitting there?
This is where we need the data, right? Okay. We have really exciting new data coming out of Australia. And this is why I'd love to give all postpartum women a ring, but I don't. I should really be more pushy with them. When women have had their baby, right, and 6 weeks postpartum, they have a prolapse, we're like, that can be normal and might go away. What if we put the ring in then? Okay? Yeah. What if we lifted everything up? And then said, right, you lift your baby and you walk outside and you lift your thing, and we're just going to hold this up for a year and then we're going to take it out. I had someone recently who would actually come online and talk about it, and we will one day. She had a bladder prolapse, she was freaking out. She went for a 5-kilometer run at 6 weeks postpartum, which she shouldn't have done.
Okay.
And she knows me and she listens to me. I was like, anyway, gave her the ring. A year postpartum, we've taken out, her prolapse is gone.
Oh, wow.
Completely gone.
Okay.
But that's because we intervened early.
Yeah.
Lifted it up.
Yeah. So the timing is everything.
Intervention, early checks,
Yes. Yeah, okay. So awareness.
Prevention rather than cure.
Correct. I'm so sad I didn't meet you.
Sorry, Ellie, poor Ellie. She can't even think of her next question now because she's like, oh no.
So Aoife, you mentioned there about people running and doing weights and all of this. Like, what's your general perspective on pelvic floor health and pelvic health if people are doing all of this training and heavy weights? Everyone's lifting heavy weights now. We need it for our longevity. What do we do? Do we need to kind of brace, hold in the pelvic floor? What's the right thing to do?
So definitely don't brace, because that's what a lot of people do.
Okay.
Never wear those weightlifting belts. I know hardly anyone does, but they're awful for your pelvic floor. When you hold your breath and brace and lift really heavy, what you do is push down. Okay. So if you're lifting, you're going, right? That is like, I'm constipated. Same thing. You're pushing down on your pelvic floor. So if you're constantly doing that, you would see clips of women in the Olympics lifting heavy and leaking, and they're in their 20s, right? Heavy lifting is pushing on the pelvic floor, and we have a different makeup to men, not just different strength, right? It's so much pressure. It's called bladder pressure, right? It's just a downward pressure, and do we have the strength for it, okay? That is not to say we shouldn't lift heavy weights, right? If you have prolapse, the research actually says lifting anything less than 30 kilo is safe. 30 kilos still decent, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to women in their 40s and 50s lifting heavy weights, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, if you've had vaginal births and you have a bit of pelvic floor dysfunction or weakness, you could be lifting 50. You know what I mean? Well, like I lift 50 kilo, but I don't lift 100. And there are women who lift 100.
Yeah.
Do we need to do the extremes, right? The benefit of lifting weights is lifting weights 5 reps to fatigue. That's what we're looking for.
Yes.
Not 20 reps, not 1 rep.
Yeah.
So there are people who are super competitive and are like trying to lift heavier. Really, it's about fatigue and muscle. So like 50 kilo is plenty. And exhale on the effort. Don't hold your breath, right? So as you lift a weight, if you're doing a squat, as you come up from the squat, breathe out. Breathe in as you go down, breathe out as you go up. If you're deadlifting, breathe out. As you come against gravity, breathe out. Don't hold your breath. And if you do start to feel a change down there, we would put in a pessary while you lift your weights. Or there's some outer garments that might help a bit. You know, it's all about working with. Our goals are your goals. That's our job in physio. Not to stop you doing what you love. How can we keep this happening without making things worse? How can we support you? Running is tough on the pelvic floor. What I would say to people, a lot of women leak when they run. Running in the morning is always better than running in the evenings if you can. You're way less likely to leak. Your body's not as tired. You haven't eaten as much, drank as much. Your bowels aren't as heavy. A lot of women find that, but they don't have time to. There's, again, a lot of things we can do. Little support pessaries for running, little shorts for running to help you not leak, right? Leaking doesn't mean you're making everything worse, but it is just like if you have a problem when you're running and lifting, and if there's no problem, carry on. If there is, see a physio so we can help you keep doing it, and vaginal estrogen.
Yes, I love that attitude. It's just empowering people to do what they want to do.
Solutions.
Aoife, let's talk about sex. As
Baby.
the song goes. Women are coming to you for sexual dysfunction, painful sex, lots of things. Like, what are you seeing? What's going on?
So what they come to me for is painful intercourse, right? Which usually, as I said earlier, is very tight pelvic floor muscles. They'll think it's in their mind, and it can be a little bit in that your brain controls everything, right?
Yeah.
Women can't feel aroused or orgasm without their brain playing ball. In fact, our brains are usually so busy thinking about something else. They can't be in the moment, right? So women find it much more harder to stay in that moment and to connect to their body for lots of different reasons. And some women have history of trauma or even like childbirth trauma for them. They could be on contraceptive pills, even low estrogen in menopause. So we talk about that a lot, but younger ladies can have hormone imbalances, PCOS, endometriosis, things that had not been diagnosed. But they come in to me saying, Aoife, I'm trying to have intercourse, it hurts all the time, or I cannot have it because it hurts, which we love them coming in. They're not just putting up or avoiding, they're coming for help. So first I explain to them what's normal about a vagina and anatomy. They always think there's something wrong with their vagina, and there usually is not, right? So just take out my lovely little vulva, educate them. Then I examine them, get them comfortable with someone examining them, you know, because it might have been a smear or an attempted smear or an attempted partner. I always say, like, willies are like a battering ram trying to get in. They don't know where the hole is either. No one knows what you're doing. Then the girl just blames herself. So examining them with my finger, teaching them how to let go of their muscles. Much harder to relax the pelvic floor. Then I work with them with dilators at home, which are these kind of silicone things, look like tiny dildos, right? And they get bigger in size. So they work with them at home. And I always say, you're going to get more comfortable putting something in there. You're going to see that you've gone from the smallest one to the bigger one to the bigger one, giving you confidence. And you're going to come back to me, and then I'm going to try and put them in, because what's different is I'm the other person. So that's when they can tend to clam up or get really anxious that it's not going to work, you know. I give them tips about getting on top, different positions, using lots of lubricant, and just trying to calm their mind in that moment, you know. So I just love, like, that we help women so, like, there's not too many women I won't help with that to get them to where they want to be, whatever their goal is. Sometimes these days it's women actually just wanting to do IVF or IUI on their own, and they've never had intercourse and they need a transvaginal ultrasound, you know. I've had a lady come full circle, never had sex, wanted to have a baby, then she came to me for a postpartum check. And I was like, I've been with you through all of this. You know, it's amazing. So there's totally help out there. It's not drink a glass of wine, it's all in your head, you just need to relax, right? And if I can't fix them, I will send them to a very nice gynae. Like about 10% of them I might need to send to a gynecologist for more assistance with medication or creams. Even young girls we try vaginal estrogen on, if they PCOS or on the Implanon or something, you know, we absolutely go, let's try a bit of estrogen, see how this goes, because vaginas love estrogen, okay? And not everyone's estrogen is balanced. Then there's women after pregnancy, after delivery, as they're coming into their 40s, where their vaginas are changing. And how often do you go to a medical appointment where people say, how's your sexual wellness? You know,
never.
Are you orgasming well? Do you enjoy it? You know, women always say it feels different after I had intercourse. I keep saying intercourse, after I've had a baby, or it feels different with hormone changes. And I've asked my partner, and like, if the partner says, yeah, it feels different, I mean, I think that's even worse answer, because then it's really hard for a woman to enjoy it, thinking that things are good enough down there for him. Absolutely. So if there's any men watching this, lie, you dickheads. She has birthed your children and now she's going through menopause. So there is changes. So again, vaginal estrogen can really help. That's why, again, in my clinic, that collagen stimulating, like, it's not just all about birth deliveries and injuries. It is about changing collagen, you know. I always say to women, like, your clitoris is the only organ that was only made for pleasure. Like, there's no other function in it, right? So many women come into me who've never orgasmed. Again, like, I've had women in their 70s say to me, can I tell you something? I've never orgasmed. Because when else could they ever say that, right? The first thing I do is take out a vibrator, which they may have never heard about before. And I show them in clinic. This is the little puffer one with air. So women at different ages might find different vibrators work better for them, or they're more sensitive or less sensitive. I say, you get yourself some vaginal estrogen and you rub it on that clitoris, okay? And you get yourself a little vibrator. Maybe they're not with the partner, maybe they are, you know. If a man's penis didn't work, or he had an ejaculation issue, look, he might be a bit shy to go there, but there's a lot of help. I mean, you can walk into Boots and get Viagra without a prescription, you know what I mean? So there are solutions for men and there are solutions for women. So as physios, we can really help, we can really educate. But for a woman's, her own sexual wellness and well-being, your clitoris is the most important part of that, okay? There are times when you're losing estrogen that the clitoris can shrink. You can get things like lichen sclerosis, like skin conditions that cause fusion over the clitoris. Again, vaginal estrogen creams are brilliant for this.
Will that help with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
You need steroid for lichen sclerosis, but the estrogen, I always say, is the antidote, because steroid can cause shrinking, right, and thinning, but estrogen is amazing for it. So I say lashing on, you're supposed to use it in prescribed amounts, right? But around the clitoris, women aren't doing that. And that's why I love the multifunction of it. Right on the clitoris itself, and then down the sides, because your clitoral nerves come right down the side. So when a woman is aroused, all her labia, her vulva, should be engorged with blood. So if they're getting shrinking of the vulva, it's actually like, actually my clitoris can't feel the same as it once did, okay? So we can't always fix vaginas, but we can always maintain our clitoral health. And that's what's important for women and their sexual function.
Absolutely. And so if people are having pain, just back to pain,
Yeah.
is there anything anatomically that could be going wrong, or
like rarely, yes, like scar tissue or hymenal issues, but it's very rare.
Right. Okay.
We're looking more at endometriosis, like as a medical issue.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
most of the time it is very tight muscles or hormone issues.
Yeah, and their mind, some
Yeah,
anxiety.
absolutely, and psychological issues too. But very rarely is it like there's actually a problem with the vagina itself and they need surgery to correct it. I mean, once in a blue moon.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot my...
That's okay.
Damn, I had forgot my next question. You were saying...
That is very rarely like anatomical.
I know, and I just wanted to ask about, so... Oh yeah. So do you find when people come to you and you're having these lovely open conversations and you're kind of blowing it all open for women, does that just that help them? Because I feel like it does, just to really talk about it and have that honesty.
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
I'm really glad.
and I mean, my take-home message for everyone is not just to come in. I suppose I feel like I'm the kind of person people feel comfortable with straight away, and I don't find this embarrassing. Like, my life is vaginas. My heads are in vaginas every day, right? So they're embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed. Then that leaves them more open. But what we should be doing is talking to our lady friends about it, right?
Definitely.
At the ladies' brunches, you go into town now in the afternoon, it's full of women, okay? Women are talking about their hormones and they're talking about the kids and they're talking about it. We're open with each other. Talk about this. You will be amazed if you brought up a conversation like this at a girls' lunch, what other people would say. You're never the only one, you know?
Yeah.
So even giving your friends advice, or I went to this person, again with HRT, people are like, oh no, I'm on this spray now, you know?
Yes,
so women give each other the best advice, you know? But to know you're not alone, and if it does mean directing you in, I went to this doctor or this physio or this worked for me, you know? So talk to the ladies in your life about your vagina.
Totally. Or just send them an Instagram post, send them one of your reels. Because I think even if people are shy, I still think that even within friend groups, there's still just a bit of shyness about particular things, particularly around sex, the vulva. I mean, I know like people are doing such good work and Irish women are doing such good work around this.
Yeah.
But there's still a little bit of shyness. That's why I think Instagram is great. Just send the reel. Say nothing.
Yeah. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
There's
What
no
about you?
underlying thoughts behind this. I'm just sending it to you.
It's helpful. Aoife, this has been such a good conversation. I've loved it. But if you could now just talk to all women about even their sexual health, their pelvic health, like what would you say to them, I think, around the area of dealing with it or feeling embarrassed or anything like that? Like, what do you want women to know?
I want you to know that it is really hard being a woman. You know, okay, like not just our pelvic floor, our hormones, we go through things all stages of life. It's absolutely shit being a woman, right? It is much easier to be a man in this world, but we are better at looking after everyone else in our lives than ourselves, right? Okay. Our kids and our husbands. Make the appointment, girls. Don't put up with it. It's not taboo, okay? Don't just live with issues. Again, you're not the only one. Loads of women have pelvic floor and pelvic health issues, and we've talked about them all today. Make the appointment and look after yourself, and don't be embarrassed, and just keep prioritizing you, because we want you out there lifting the weights and doing the exercise and taking the hormones and dancing till it's dawn, you know?
And having sex.
Yeah, and having the sex, but don't drink too much. So we want longevity in life. We all want to age well. And when people say, I don't want to end up like my mom, like we're all going to end up like our moms, right? But we want to age better because we're going to live longer, but we want to live healthy and enjoy that age.
I love it. The perfect end. Thank you so much, Aoife.
You're welcome.
Thanks for checking in with us. We hope today's episode gave you insight and clarity. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or share it with a woman you feel needs to hear it. Image the Check-In is empowered by Boots and sponsored by Samsung and Waterstone Clinic. Thank you to our partners for making these conversations possible, and thank you for listening. For more expert advice and real women's health stories, visit the Image Women's Health Clinic on image.ie and follow us on Instagram. And until next time, take care.